And I'm going to start the recording now.
All right, welcome to our May 18th Urban Renewal session here. And I'd like to call the order, please. And first off, we're going to say that Derek Beneville, who was the chairman of this commission, has moved on to another something else and is no longer the commission president here. So I'm going to I'm vice chair, and I'll handle the meetings here from henceforth. So do you want to call the roll, please?
Sure. Commissioner Van Haverbeek?
Here.
Commissioner Smith?
Here.
Commissioner Mengelberg?
Here.
Commissioner Holliday and Commissioner Pauley are absent this evening, excused absences, and then Vice Chair Shaw.
Here. All right, citizen comments. Seeing none. Adoption of the agenda.
Move to
You
adopt the
okay?
agenda.
All right,
We don't have
we
to,
good?
but-
All right, good. General business, let's move on to number 4A, 16-277, building design presentation for 922 Main Street. Mr. Underwood, please.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. This was supposed to be an opportunity for the developer to come in and present to you the site elevations for 922 Main Street. However, they don't seem to be in attendance tonight, so I'm going to try to wing it. I've got a summary that they've submitted along with a site plan or site elevations. The basic purpose tonight is to just build consensus among the commission prior to going through an official land use process. So this isn't really an official approval. It's just trying to get buy-in from the actual property owners before so they have a good idea what's expected before they go through the land use process. So I think we've got some slides here we'll present to you. And I'll just come up. Well, do you want me to come up front? Or? Okay. So I'm not sure. I think there are one or two slides here. But you will see on this first slide the elevation off of Main Street. So it's kind of catacorner. If you're standing on the corner of this and that, or Renee's on Main, this is kind of what you'd see. Over to the left-hand side of the rendering is 10th Street. So their intent is to try to put a modern twist on the older architecture. So they're trying to match the downtown but show that there's new development in town as well. So that's why you see a lot of the brick, and you see the 922 Main that's put at the top level there. The proposed development is ground floor retail with 2 floors of residential. And they are planning to take advantage of our vertical housing development zone that we have in place in this area. So just bear with me if you don't mind. I'm going to read through this. I wasn't prepared to present. As I said, 3-story mixed-use building, approximately 16,000 square feet. First story is retail. Second and third story multifamily with 6 units on each floor. And there would be 12 on-site parking spaces. And I do think they plan to use the on-street parking as part of their parking requirement, which they can do.
Is there on-street parking there? I mean, I know there's some in front of the cycle shop, but where is the on-street?
Well, I don't know what the parameters of that are, but I would assume that they could use all of Main Street, the next block down. There is residential there too, so there's some flexibility, after hours and that sort of thing, and a lot of that's going to be worked out through the land use process. So it's, the parking number, the required parking spaces are 26, but they will be requesting that it be reduced to 50%, and they'll also need to look at Code 17.52, alternative modes of transportation for relief per traffic study. So they will have to do a traffic study for this development.
Good luck.
They do acknowledge that the parking plan that is proposed does not meet the standards. And although it does meet the requirements in the depth of parking. Bicycle parking, we are providing 2 spaces for the residential tenants and the Galleria. The Galleria is that space, well, let's see. Right in the middle there, you see kind of a gap with a clear awning above. That's considered the Galleria. So that's where the bicycle parking would be. And 2 spaces for the retail area under the building overhang on Main Street. So you'll see that awning there on Main Street. There will be additional bicycle parking there. Parking landscaping. The perimeter parking lot landscaping has been added to the extent possible in the form of a bioswale with tree plantings. It will be designed to collect the parking lot storm drainage and the roof storm water. So they do propose a clear network of public and private circulation as far as pedestrian access that's been provided to the residential tenants. They are providing access to adjoining properties. This was addressed at the pre-application conference, which they've already had. I think that was in March. So there is required access there with the bike shop all the way to 10th Street. Let's see. Some of this goes into a little more detail than I think that's more appropriate for the land use process. If you're looking through this, if you have any questions, please feel free to just interrupt me and ask, and I'll do my best to answer. Yes.
I do have some questions about the parking. Is the 26 spaces that are required a combination of what retail might require in addition to what the residential requires?
Yes.
So does that take into account that probably the residential would be primarily needing parking in the evening and the retail might be needing it during the day? So in theory, that the entire development, because it's mixed use, might not need as much parking?
Possibly. Yes. So that's why I was mentioning that there is some flexibility there due to the residential component. So and there are options as well, even though it's going to be different parking demand throughout the day. There are options as well for parking agreements with other private property owners for the residential. There's a lot across the street at the physical therapy building there on the corner, on the opposite corner, that's not particularly used a lot at night after 5 o'clock, and that's a private property. Yeah. But that would pose as an opportunity possibly for a private parking partnership there, agreement.
And then you had mentioned the access to the bike shops. So would that mean that potential tenants or shoppers could pull in front of the bike shop and then pull around the rear and park here?
Potentially, yes. They are required to keep that access open, but accessible is different. So they cannot build to block that. But they can. Now this hasn't been worked out yet in the land use process, but I believe there's some potential for them to block the access for their parking safety and pedestrian safety in the rear there. Because what you would have is, if you allowed traffic to continue to go through there to 10th Street, you would have people walking across that drive aisle continuously back and forth, which would cause a safety concern in their minds. So I think their intention, or what they will be proposing during the land use process, is to block that temporarily.
I guess I was thinking that if I were a resident and it's a right turn in, right turn out, it would be tempting to be able to just pull out behind the cycle shop to
go down to Main
as
Street,
opposed to having to go all the way up Singer Hill and around. And
that's true. Yeah, that's a detail that we haven't gotten to yet, that I'm not able to answer at this point. So
has there been a request for urban renewal funds for this at all?
There has not.
Do you anticipate that at all? Or
I really don't, if we haven't talked about it to this point.
Okay.
Yeah, because they're kind of well into their due diligence period, and they've done a lot of their cost estimates and so forth. So, but
Okay.
there hasn't been any requests so far.
Yeah. Now, they also talked about the green roof,
Right, that was
part of the landscaping thing, or?
that was mentioned. I believe that's could still be a possibility. They do realize that the top of this building also acts kind of as a gateway if you're coming down
Yeah.
Singer Hill. I keep looking back 'cause I'm hoping they're showing.
Yeah.
But so they've proposed garden spaces on the top of the building for the tenants that are in the residential area, and so that would make kind of a nice green gateway as you come down Singer Hill.
Okay.
There will be, as part of this project, there will be a new median that will be constructed in 10th and Main.
Oh, if the mayor was here now.
So I think it's proposed a concrete median up at 10th, so it would only permit the right in, right out turning.
And that
Okay.
means they wouldn't be able to turn left on into Dutch Brothers.
No,
Right.
right.
Yeah.
So,
Perfect.
yeah.
Which, that's consistent with the traffic recommendation that we received from Public Works a while back. right?
Exactly. It is. Yeah. The rest of this goes into minimum floor height, compliance with building facade standards, lighting standards, which is a little more detail, fences, screening for mechanical equipment. I'm not sure that you're interested in that level of detail, but
Yeah.
Back to the reconstruction of 10th Street, including a new median, the last sentence kind of struck me. I'd also like to add our preliminary pricing and construction study of 10th Street reconstruction would be far less expensive if we could close the street and redirect traffic for 1 to 2 weeks. That would be
Oh, we
challenging.
that would be a challenge.
Problem.
Most definitely.
Dutch
Most
Brothers would mind that.
Yeah.
Right, right. So yes, that would be a challenge. I'm sure that will be discussed as we move forward. So
All right.
Great.
Anybody else have something? My only consideration is I'm not in love with the that white facade there right on the corner. It's just pretty bland, and if you could maybe, and I don't know how we address that, if we address that with urban renewal here or whatever, but I just wish they would do something a little different there, maybe like a time clock kind of thing. That's something really, because that's the entry to our city right
Such a
there.
Right.
Primary spot.
You know, something could be done with that. The rest of the building, I think, is great,
Yeah.
but that diagonal facade there is, it doesn't grab me like I thought. As the rest of the building is designed, that I thought something would be spectacular right there on that corner. So if they could kind of revisit that, as far as I'm concerned, you know, so.
certainly,
Okay.
yeah. Any feedback that comes from the commission will be given to them, as you are owners of the property currently, and so this is how you'd like to see it develop, and so that would be incorporated.
Yeah.
Along those lines, Eric, I'm noticing on the Main Street side that there's really only one tree, whereas on the 10th Avenue side, there's several. So was the thinking that they didn't want to block the right-hand turn lane there?
I would.
I think so,
That's
probably.
probably why they designed it that way. However, I think, you know, if it does not meet the landscaping standards, I'm sure they would add another tree in there. But that feedback will go to them and let them know that that's probably a desire to have some more landscaping in the front.
It doesn't necessarily need to be a tree, but there could be some nice pots with
Shrubbery or
some
something.
shrubs or flowers or something to kind of,
Yeah.
you know, that's a pretty busy section. So something to buffer that a little bit for the shoppers and
Okay.
something more visual.
So noted. Yeah, thank you. Also, one other thing I'd like to mention is they're coming up pretty quickly on their due diligence period as far as our purchase and sale agreement. That expires on the 24th of this month. They're also requesting an extension of their due diligence period so they can continue to move forward on this project. They're still enthusiastic and they want to build, but they need a little more time. So I would recommend another at least 30 days for them to go through.
You need a motion for that then?
No, just consensus saying,
consensus
yeah,
on
and
it,
I
so-
can go back and make the amendment. And,
Are we in consensus
Yeah, I
for
think
a
that's
30-day
great.
extension? Okay.
okay, so
Got
I'll
it.
make the amendment and bring it back for an official.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
I'd say
approval.
overall, I'm excited. I think
Yeah,
this
very
is
exciting.
Yeah,
a great
very nice.
design, and,
Very
and that
nice.
we're having mixed-use development
Yeah.
on such a challenging lot, on such a prominent corridor. It's really exciting, and
Yeah.
I'm glad to see it move forward.
Great,
Yeah.
great. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you.
Thanks, Eric.
Thank you.
Okay, going to move on here to future agenda items. Anybody?
No.
Hearing none. City manager's report.
Nothing to report this evening, Chair. Thank you.
Here was your chance.